Hi, this is Allie. Welcome to Okay to Be Fat. This is another episode of Big Fat Questions. So, today's question is, do you believe that fat people are born to be fat and that there's nothing they can do to lose weight? Um, well, I think this is a sort of neutral form of this question, which I appreciate. Here's the thing. Fat people is like a lot of people, right? Like this is a group, based on how we've like calculated BMI. Check out my BMI videos for a debunk of that. But we've like determined these are the fat people and these are the thin people. And so really what we're talking about here are like average, above average, below average. So I think the thing is that when people think about the fat people, they have an idea in their head that doesn't like encompass the variety of like who fat people are and like why those people are fat. And there's sort of like, because the question is like, is there anything that people can do to lose weight? I mean, what do you mean by lose weight? Like in the long term, it's unlikely. It's not totally impossible. The fatter you are, the less likely it is that you'll be able to get lose enough weight to put yourself into a, average or 25 or below BMI, which is what people want people to be able to do. That's like extremely unlikely for especially for the fattest like cohort of people. Can you do things that will artificially lower your weight for a period of time? Yeah, of course. I mean, people do that all the time. Can you keep weight off forever? Probably not. I mean, I think the thing is, though, is I think most people know this. Most people know this from their own personal experience. Now, set point theory tells us that people tend to fluctuate between like 10 to 20 pounds up or down from a certain kind of set point that is the weight that your body tends to want to stay at. I mean, wanting in this context is sort of a weird term, but basically it's a question of like, if you do not purposefully try to lose weight on purpose, what weight or size do you tend to stay at? That's your set point. You could go up 20 pounds, you can go down 20 pounds. That's all pretty normal. There's, fairly normal fluctuations. Everyone goes through this. Everyone knows that that's the case. Now, is it, and this is where you get situations where people will be like, well, I stopped drinking soda, and I lost 20 pounds. And they think that that sort of maps onto the experience of someone who is like 350 pounds, who would have to lose over half their body weight to get down to a 25 BMI. Like, that's not, first of all, you don't even know if that person is drinking soda. And if they are, like, do you think that's going to get, 250 pounds off of them? Like, I don't think so. So what are we talking about here? Like individual people's bodies are different. So, you have to keep that in mind. Because the question is like, I guess I'm sort of wondering what the purpose of the question is. If the purpose of the question is like, are some people naturally fat, so therefore we should not violently stigmatize them as a group in our culture? Well, I mean, I don't think we should be violently stigmatizing anybody. So that's my answer to that. Because you get into the question, this is sort of a like question that is similar to the like born that way rhetoric, right? Like, it's okay that I'm queer because I was born queer. But if I wasn't, would it not be okay? Like, would it be bad to be gay if you couldn't say, well, I was born gay? Well, what if you didn't think you were? What if you decided you want, everyone kind of jumped up Cynthia Nixon's ass when she said she decided to be gay, but, like, I don't understand. That's, like, the rhetoric that we had to use in the 90s of people being born gay. The reason why that became the rhetoric is because, like, people were dying because, the AIDS crisis was in, like, full force, and, people needed a sort of rhetorical tool to say, like, it's not fair, it's not right for you to be, like, letting people die. It's not fair to, and it's not right to discriminate against people. But the problem is that it positions queerness in a spot where it's sort of like, this is bad, and if I had the opportunity not to be this way, I would choose to be some way else. And that's not how I feel about being queer, and it, like, forecloses all these kind of, like, radical political, manifestations of queerness, like questions about how families can be constituted, that, people at the time that rhetoric was adopted, there was a real fight. If you look at the history between people who were, worried about what would happen to this, sort of more radically political forms of queerness, that, and the sort of, I guess the answer that people were, it was like, we're dying, we have to do something, and we think this is going to work on people. And so it's not that I think that it's bad that happened. It's absolutely understandable. In the same way that, like, it's absolutely understandable that, like, people wanted gay marriage because people were getting kicked out of their, partners of multiple decades, like, hospital beds by, like, evil family members who showed up at the absolute last minute. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare time. And you cannot blame people for the choices that they made. But, you do have to, now is the time to advance the rhetoric, right? Like, that was what was done for a reason and a contextual purpose of a time. Now it is time to advance the rhetoric. Because it seems like we're in a position where people are like, well, if you can't change something, then I guess I can't discriminate against you for that thing. And, like, I would respond to that with, why do you feel like you really want to discriminate against people so much? It's bad. You shouldn't be doing that. Right? So, so that's, like, me kind of taking on, like, the context of what I think the question might be. If I'm assuming a context for you that's unfair, I apologize. I have been asked this question in various forms many, 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 many times. So this is not at you. This is sort of just to kind of cover the context of the question in a general fashion. Okay, so we've done the subtext. Let's do the text. Are fat people born fat? Well, some people are. You can definitely look in some people's families. You can see that they have fat people in their families. You can see, there's studies, and some people will tell you, like, definitely there, in the books and the research that I'm working on, that, how big you are is, at least a lot of it is a factor of your genes. It's like height, right? Okay, so that's one thing. So another thing is like, what kind of environment do you grow up in? And this is not like, do you grow up in an environment where, like, your parents give you Oreos and you learn bad habits or whatever. I mean, like, the environment. Like, are you in, a place where you're being affected by a lot of pollution? Like, are you in an environment where you have access to food? Like, are you in an environment where you sometimes have access to food and sometimes you don't, which is that's a real problem for poor people. All of these things take a toll. Another thing that is a big deal with, like, environmental factors for fat people, especially fat kids, is, like, children who are forced to diet at young ages develop extremely fraught and negative relationships with food and with exercising, and that those continue on into the rest of their lives. And so whether or not that would make you fat, like, basically what we know is that dieting makes people fatter. And so if you go through diet after diet after diet after diet, then your set point will reset at a higher level every time you do a diet, right? So you do the diet, you keep the weight off. Let's say you keep it off for 3 years. It all comes back and a little bit more. And then the little bit more is going to be really hard to lose the next time you try. And then it happens again, and it's a little bit more than that. And then it happens again, and it's a little bit more than that. And so we do not have a way to turn fat people into thin people permanently. We just don't. And you can be like, well, you just have to follow the diet forever. Our bodies are programmed to not allow us to do that. There will come a point where, for most people, you will break the diet. The reason why you will break the diet is because your brain and your hormones in your body will make you do it. Your body is not, like, your brain is not an organ that functions without your body. Like, you can't, it's not a little man driver just pulling levers. Like, your brain is a part of your body. Like, there's no separating the two. So if you can say, I decide to do this, I decide to do that, and you do, but on the other hand, like, we do a lot of rationalizing things that we've already done. There's a whole thing of consciousness on this that I don't know enough about to talk about, but it's really interesting work. But at any rate, like, there's not really a way to just decide, like, I'm definitely gonna be a thin person. And I find it, like, very strange and, like, sort of indicative of how, like, thin people don't, like, know or listen to fat people, like, at all. In that, like, that thin people could be like, well, I mean, if you just decided to be thin, like, you could just do it. Like, why don't you just do it? Just go be thin. Just do it. Just do it. Like, do you know how horrible it is to be fat and, like, female in this country? It is horrible. It is horrible. To be a fat girl in this country is to be constantly having people not listen to you and fuck with you and target you. Like people that you think, if anyone in a group is having a problem, someone will turn around and scream at me about something just because they know no one's going to stand up for me because I'm fat. And so therefore I'm not a real person to most people, and I'm easy to target. Like, people, that's a hard thing to go through. And so, like, if there was a way to have, like, not gone through those things, don't you think that people would do that? Like, when people are like, well, but have you heard of a diet? And I'm like, no, I mean, you're the first one to tell me. Like, what other, like, interesting information do you have? Have you heard of oxygen? I've heard of this wonderful thing. It's called, air, and I breathe it. Like, maybe you should try that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, yes, of course I've heard of dieting. Who in America has not heard of dieting? The only thing that we hear about more than dieting is Jesus. Like, dieting is famous. It's really, really famous. It's everywhere. You don't have to tell people about it. People are immersed in it. Like, to say I'm not gonna diet is to be so far outside of the norm that people literally can't even hear you. Like, you're speaking a language from space that they don't have the frequency in their ears to be able to hear. Like, that's how much people are, like, into dieting. So, like, do I think that there's nothing that fat people can do to lose weight? I don't know. I mean, individual people are different. It is my experience and the experience of most people I know and the studied experience of millions of people that, like, it's probably not going to happen, and that a better thing to do with your time and money would be to just, learn how to live with the body that you have and adjust to it. But I mean, if people like very, very much don't want to do that, so I can't make them. You know what I mean? I'm just here to tell people there's another way. If they don't want that other way, then like I'm just one person, you know? So yeah, I mean, is there if the diet industry is like so successful, why do they make so much money? Like, why don't they put themselves out of business if they're so successful? And it's so easy to like make this be like a problem that is an individual person problem. But if 99% of everyone is having an individual problem that is the same problem, maybe it's not an individual problem. That's what I'm saying. So I hope that answers your question. I hope you didn't feel that it was like hostile. I didn't mean for it to be hostile, but it's just like a question that we get like a lot. I mean, and I think Kate Harding wrote an essay that's like, you know, the promise of being thin, and I think that's good. Like, you Google it, it's really good. But it basically is like, people get angry when you say like you're probably not going to lose weight, and I try not to do this, even to trolls. But like, when people are like, well, I lost 300 pounds and blah, 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 and it's been 2 years, and I just think to myself, well, come back in 5 more and we'll see where you are. Because, like, you can lose weight in the short term, but it's extremely bad for you. And so, and then, you know, like, if someone's gained weight because they're taking a medication that helps them stay alive, isn't it good for them to take that medication and stay alive? Because like, there have definitely been incidences where people are taking mental health medication or other forms of medication. You know, steroids that people have to take for autoimmune disorders will make you gain a lot of weight. That, like, is it not better for that person to take that medication and remain alive than not take it? And that it will get to a point where doctors will be like, I don't know, maybe we should switch you off this medication that's really helping you and saving your life because you've gained too much weight. That is madness. Like, I mean, I cannot believe that we live in a world where that is like what's going on with the medical profession, but here we are. You know, like, that is just beyond the bounds of what I understand is I don't even know. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't understand how it makes sense to anyone else. But here we are. So, I was going to stop before because I said, I hope this answers your question. But I do hope this answers your question. If you have further questions, leave them in the comments below. I will definitely put them on the list and try to get to them. And that's it for today. Please like this video and subscribe. It really helps other people to see my work. Thank you very much. I will talk to you later. Bye.